You've finally done it. You've managed to scrape together $10,000, and now you're sitting there staring at your bank account like you just discovered fire. Congratulations, you officially joined a club that most people never reach. But here's the plot twist nobody tells you about hitting 5 figures in savings. Having the money is actually the easy. Figuring out what to do with it without completely destroying your financial future is where things get spicy. Then it goes pepper eating contest. You probably spent months, maybe even years, living off instant noodles at generic cereal, skipping happy hours, and pretending you enjoy walking everywhere and taking right shirts. Also, you could reach this Majeston 10,000. Now that you're here, you're faced with a problem that sounds absolutely ridiculous to anyone so counting quarters for a laundry money. What do you actually do when you have real money to invest? The internet is absolutely flooded with advice ranging from genuinely helpful to completely insane. Some financial guru will tell you to, it's a little into the latest meme stock. Your coworker thinks you should buy precious metals and bury them in your backyard like some kind of modern pirate. Meanwhile, your bank is probably trying to convince you that their savings account offering 0.01% interest is somehow a good deal. It's like being offered a chocolate chip cookie with no chocolate chip. My name is In, and I help regular people understand how money actually works instead of how financial institutions want you to think it works. If you've managed to save $10,000 and want to make decisions that will actually build wealth instead of just making other people wealthy, make sure to hit that subscribe button and smash the like if this information helps you avoid some expensive mistakes that could hunt you for decades. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to admit. Most people who manage to save $10,000 make the exact same critical errors that prevent them from ever reaching serious wealth. They either get completely paralyzed by paralysis and do absolutely nothing, watching inflation slowly eat away at their purchasing power, or they get overconfident and make moves that sound brilliant at dinner parties but are actually terrible for this specific situation. It's like choosing between standing still while a bear approaches or running directly toward the bear wearing a salmon costume. I'm going to walk you through exactly what you should do once you hit this milestone. More importantly, I'll show you what you absolutely should not do if you want that $10,000 to eventually become $50,000 and $100,000 and maybe even more. But first, let me completely destroy a myth that's probably 40 wrong in your head right now. Like a stubborn piece of popcorn stuck in your tea. Having $10,000 does not make you wealthy. I know that might sting a little, especially if you've been eating beans and rice for months to get there, but it's the reality check you need to hear. $10,000 makes you financially stable, which is genuinely awesome and something to be proud of, but it doesn't make you rich. The difference between those two things determines whether you'll spend the rest of your life working for money, or whether money will start working for you like an unpaid intern who actually enjoys their job. Here's what most people don't understand about reaching 5 figures in saving. You're not at the finish line. You're not even at the halfway point. You're basically at the starting line of actually building wealth. This is where the real game begins, and the moves you make from this point forward will determine whether you retire comfortably on a beach somewhere or end up working at 70s. You have no other choice. The first thing you need to do, and this might surprise you more than finding out your favorite childhood cartoon was actually a 30-minute toy commercial, is absolutely nothing, at least for a couple of weeks. I know that sounds completely backwards when you've got all this money sitting there like a race car in park, but hear me out. The biggest mistake people make when they hit $10,000 is immediately rush in to invest every single penny because they're terrified of missing out on returns. They've been safe for so long that they think any day not investing is a day wasted. This impatience leads to some spectacularly bad decisions that would make a reality TV show producer which do take a step back and think about a financial picture like you're looking at a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Yes, having 5-figure saves is incredible and deserves a Victor Dents, but what does the rest of your situation actually look like? Are you carrying any debt that's charging you more interest in the loan shark with anger management? Do you have a solid emergency fund that's separate from this money? What are your income prospects looking like? What are your actual financial goals beyond just having money sitting in an account like a pet rock? These questions matter infinitely more than whatever the stock market did yesterday, or what some guy in TikTok claims is the next big investment opportunity. The second thing you need to do is optimize your foundation before you even think about investing. And I know this isn't the sexy advice that gets millions of views, but it's the difference between building actual wealth and staying middle class forever while complaining about avocado avocado toast prices. If you don't have a proper emergency fund, you need to carve out a chunk of that $10,000 for this purpose immediately. I don't care how boring it sounds or how little interest you'll earn compared to investing. Your emergency fund is an investment designed to make you rich. It's insurance against life deciding to punch you in the face when you least expect it, which life has a tendency to do with the timing of a perfectly executed print. How much should you set aside for emergencies? The classic rule of 3 to 6 months of expense is still but with some important nuances. If you're single, have no dependents, and work in a stable industry like fuel directing or tax preparation, 3 months might be sufficient. If you're married with kids, on a home, or work in an industry more volatile than cryptocurrency prices, being closer to 6 months. Some people think having money invested in the stock market counts as an emergency fund because they can sell if needed. These people have clearly never experienced a real emergency during a market crash, which is like trying to use an umbrella made of tissue paper during a hurricane. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is knowledge that could save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars. You don't just stuff this emergency fund under your mattress or leave it in some checking account earning basically nothing. High-yield savings accounts are currently offering rates that haven't been seen since people thought flip phones were the pinnacle of technology. We're talking about 4 to 5% annual returns on money that's completely safe and accessible when I re-meet it. That's real money on significant balances, and it's money you can access faster than a piece of delivery on a college camp. Let's do some math that will probably surprise you more than finding out your childhood hero is actually 3 kids in a trench coat. $3,000 in a traditional savings account earning basically nothing generates maybe $30 per year. The same $3,000 in a high-yield savings account earning 5% generates $150 annual. That's enough to cover several months of coffee or decent dinner without feeling guilty about spending money. Just from interest on money you need to keep liquid anyway. The third critical move, and this is where most people mess up more spectacularly than the cooking show comments in trying to make soup way, is eliminating any high-interest debt before you invest a single dollar. I know this advice is about that exciting as watching paint dry in slow motion, but it's mathematically essential and could be the difference between building wealth and staying broke forever. If you're carrying credit card debt at 20% interest, while investing in the stock market, hoping for 10% returns, you're basically paying someone else to make you poorer while you pretend you're being financially savvy, trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is wide open and wondering why the water level never rises. The guaranteed return from paying off high-interest debt beats any investment return you could realistically expect. And it comes with zero risk unless you count the risk of your credit card company crying tears of joy when they lose your business. This becomes especially important when you consider the psychological aspects of debt, which can mess with your head more than trying to understand why hot dogs coming packages of 10 but buns coming packages of 8. Carrying debt while trying to build wealth is like trying to run a marathon while the backpack full rakes. Aiming to making decent of trying in marathons, those monthly debt payments are constantly draining your cash flow and limiting your options like a financial ball and chain. Debt elimination provides something that investments never can: guaranteed returns and immediate cash flow improvement that you can actually see in your bank account every month. Those who are most people mess this up worse than a GPS trying to navigate during a solar storm. They want to keep their debt and undress simultaneously because they worry about missing out on market gains. This is emotional thinking disguised as mathematical reasoning, like wearing a tuxedo to a water balloon fight. The reality is that eliminating 20% interest debt gives you an immediate 20% return on your money with absolutely zero risk. Show me an investment that guarantees 20% return with no risk, and I'll show you either scam or a time machine back to when people thought the earth was flat. Once you have your emergency funds, interest debt, now comes the fun part that actually feels like you're building well, instead of just playing defense against financial disasters. The fourth thing you need to understand is the incredible power of tax advantage accounts. And this is where most people leave more money on the table than a restaurant with really bad service. If you have maximized your contributions to retirement accounts, you're essentially declining free money and paying unnecessary taxes like some kind of free masochist who enjoys giving the government extra donations. For 2025, you can contribute over $23,000 to a 401k, with additional catch-up contributions if you're over 50. Traditional and Roth IRAs allow additional contributions, and health savings account provide triple tax advantages that make them more powerful for wealth building than the superhero with a really good accountant. You learn just retirement accounts sitting or gathering dust like your high school yearbooks. They're wealth-building machines that let you legally avoid paying taxes on investment growth for decades. The decision between traditional, rough contributions depends on your current income level and expected future tax rates, which is basically like trying to predict the weather 40 years from now, but with more money involved. If you're in a high tax bracket now and expect to be in a lower bracket in retirement, traditional contributions make sense. If you're early in your career or expect tax rates to increase faster than gas prices during a shortage, GLAV contributions let you pay taxes now at lower rates and withdraw everything tax-free later. But here's the part that should change how you think about these accounts forever. The contribution limits aren't just suggestions from the government like speed limits on empty highways. There are opportunities that expire every December 30. First, miss them, and you can never get them back. That unused contribution space disappears forever, along with decades of potential tax-free growth, which is more painful than stepping on a Lego barefoot in a dark. The fifth crucial decision you need to make is choosing your investment strategy. And this is where people either build generational wealth or become cautionary tales that financial advisors tell at dinner parties. The investment world is specific, designed to separate you from your money through complexity, fees, and emotional manipulation that would make a casino owner jealous. Everyone wants to sell you something, and most of it is garbage wrapped. Fancy marketing, that sounds more impressive, and it actually is. Here's what the financial industry absolutely does not want you to know, and they probably prefer I whisper of this part. The most boring investment strategy consistently outperforms the exciting ones by margins that would make a marathon runner jealous. Well, some guy on YouTube is telling you about his secret stock picking system that's definitely not just lucky guessing. And your brother-in-law is bragging about his cryptocurrency gained from 2 years ago. Wealthy people are quietly putting their money into simple index funds and watching compound interest work. It's magic like a financial visitor. Index fund is unsexy enough to get invited to parties. They don't give you exciting stories to tell your friends about how you predicted the next big thing. Nobody's going to be impressed when you say you own the entire stock market grew. A single fund that sounds as exciting as watching grass grow. But you know what is genuinely impressive? Actually having money when everyone else is complaining about being broke and blaming the economy for their financial problems. Index funds like the S&P 500 have averaged around 10% annually for decades, including through wars, recessions, and market crashes that made grown investors cry like children who dropped their ice cream. The math on this is so simple it's almost insulting to your intelligence, yet most people ignore it completely, like a fire alarm going after in their favorite TV show. $10,000 invested in an index fund averaging 10% annually becomes over $25,000 10 years without you adding another penny or living off. In 20 years, it becomes over $67,000. In 30 years, you're looking at over $170,000 from your original $10,000 investment. This isn't get rich quick like those late night and commercials. Promise. This is get rich inevitably. Soon you don't do anything spectacularly stupid along the way. But here's where people mess this up more radically than a cooking show, as they think they can beat the market by being clever, timing their purchases, picking individual stocks, or following some grooves trading signals that probably come from throwing darts at a board. 90% of professional fund managers with teams of analysts and more resources than small countries can't consistently beat the market. But somehow Dave from accounting thinks he can do it while working a full-time job and binge-watching that. The arrogance is more breathtaking than a mountain view, and the results are usually more painful than a root canal without anesthesia. Dollar cost averaging becomes your best friend when investing larger sums like $10,000. Instead of throwing all your money into the market at once and praying you didn't buy at the absolute peak like some kind of financial gambling, spread your investments over several months. Maybe invest $2,000 per month for 5 months or $1,000 per month for 10 months. This strategy reduces the risk of investing everything right before a market crash and having to watch your account balance crater like a meteor hitting Earth. It also takes the emotion out of investing, which is crucial because emotions and money mix about as well as oil and water during hurricane. The sixth thing you need to understand is diversification, but not the kind that financial advisors usually push on you, like they're selling encyclopedias door to door. Real diversification isn't only 50 different mutual funds that basically hold the same stocks with different names slapped on them. It's spreading your risk across different types of assets that react differently to economic conditions, like having multiple backup plans for when life decides to throw curveballs at you. Face real estate deserves serious consideration when you're working with five figures, not because you need to become a landlord dealing with headants along you at midnight about broken toilets and mysterious healing stand, but because real estate provides something that stocks offer: leverage and inflation protection that can multiply your return faster than a copy machine on steroids. $10,000. You could potentially put down payments on properties and control assets worth several times your initial adjustment, assuming you don't mind dealing with the complexities of property ownership that make rocket science look simple. Let's say you use that $10,000 as a down payment on $80,000 property. You now control $80,000 worth of real estate with your original invest. If that property appreciates by just 5% annually, you're earning $4,000 in equity growth on your $10,000 investment. That's a 40% return on your actual money invested, and we haven't even talked about rental income yet, which is like getting paid twice for the same. Direct real estate investment isn't for everyone, especially if the thought of dealing with property management makes you break out in a cold sweat like you're being audited by the IRS. If you don't want to handle maintenance calls, tenant drama that's more complicated than a soap opera, and the general headaches that come with being someone's landlord. Real estate investment trusts give you exposure to real estate without wanting to pull your hair out every month. REA ties trade like stocks, but own income-producing properties like pauper office buildings and shopping centers that actually generate cash flow. They're required by law to pay out most of their profits as dividends, making them excellent sources of passive income that show up in your account more reliably than your friend who always says they'll pay you back. You get the benefits of real estate ownership without having to unclog anyone's toilet at 2 in the morning or explain why the rent is due on the 1st of every month, not whenever they feel like paying it. For more tips on how to invest like a pro, make sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button.